I tell you what,
It's not like the olden days.
I'm Rosie,
I'm Jake.
and this is our podcast on Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, which was a cartoon series which ran for only one season of 13 episodes in 1991, I believe.
Yes, indeed.
So I was quite young, actually. I didn't catch it the first time it was shown on CBBC. I remember some of the boys at school were rather obsessed with it for the few weeks it was actually on television. I saw it when it was repeated on weekday mornings in the Christmas holidays, didn't I?
Yes, indeed. It was the Christmas holidays of 1994.
Wow.
And Rosie was going around saying, "Oh, look what's on these holiday mornings. Bucky O'Hare. I'm going to get up and watch Bucky O'Hare. I'm going to record Bucky O'Hare." And I thought, what is this nonsense she's talking about? Bucky O'Hare? Sounds like a load of rubbish to me. But I was wrong, actually. And when I watched it on those Christmas holiday mornings, I thought, oh, I can see why she liked this.
I did say that, didn't I? Yes, I had seen one or two episodes when they were on another time, I think after school. And I can't tell you what I actually liked about it because I don't remember, and perhaps I didn't even realise at the time. But for some reason, it spoke to me. So when I found out it was on in these holiday mornings, yes, I went around saying, I'm so excited I'm going to record it. I'd better now speak a bit about what the show's actually about, hadn't I?
Yes.
It's set mostly in an entire universe called the Aniverse, which is a play on the word animal, because all the inhabitants of the Aniverse are animals. For instance, Bucky O'Hare is a hare or a rabbit. He doesn't seem quite sure, but that's because the show is American and they don't know the difference.
That's right. The only native hare to North America is the jackrabbit, so you can see how the confusion comes in.
The rest of the animal crew of Bucky's ship, the Righteous Indignation spaceship, are First Mate Jenny, who's a cat, Engineer Bruce, who is a baboon, who disappears in the first episode, and we'll explain a bit more about that later, Android First Class Blinky, Deadeye Duck, who is the gunner, and he's a four-armed pirate duck, which is something the Aniverse has, not three things that necessarily go together in any other circumstances. Bruiser, who's also a baboon, and Bruce's brother, and he's a space marine, so he's like an army guy, who comes and joins the crew after Bruce disappears. And Bruce's replacement is Willie DeWitt, who is a human being from San Francisco.
I remember even when we were preparing to watch it in those Christmas holidays, you were saying Deadeye was your favourite Deadeye duck, and I could certainly see why. As you were saying there, he has quite a lot of interesting connotations to him, having four arms, being this ace gunner, and being a former pirate. They certainly do make some interesting subject matter for some episodes, and I always thought that the couple of Deadeye-based episodes in the series were some of the strongest. Obviously, as we'll say in a moment, the first 4 episodes of the 13 are the very, very best and an excellent arc, but
yes, obviously. The
kind of character-based episodes where Willie will join one of the characters and be the special friend for the episode. I always like the Deadeye ones of those best rather than Jenny's or Bruiser's.
Yes, when I was young, before I even really knew much about it, and I'd seen these couple of episodes, I went around saying Deadeye was my favourite, because you have to have a favourite, don't you? Like everyone had to have a favourite Ninja Turtle.
Mostly Raphael.
When Jake gave me the DVD for Christmas in my adult years, I thought, I wonder if Deadeye really is my favourite. I don't know what it is that I like about him in terms of depth, characterization. I think I just liked him because he was a four-armed pirate duck, and there was a bit of a precedent with cartoon ducks with Count Duckula, and everyone likes Daffy. But it turns out I was right. He is my favourite.
I think you picked up on a lot of the deeper things in the show when you were young without even realising it. Perhaps it's hard to define why you did like it so much, because it just speaks to you on some level that you can't really get to grips with when you're that young. But there's actually a hell of a lot in there. as we discover in terms we can understand when we're a bit older.
Yes, we'll talk about that perhaps in a moment. It's difficult to know what order to talk about things in because it's all so cleverly intertwined.
Yes, shall we mention the baddies by name? You mentioned all the goodies.
The baddies are the Toads, and in fact, the Toads are kind of like the Nazis because they've taken over the Aniverse, or are trying to take over the Aniverse, and have taken over bits of it, and they're oppressing certain races. And Bucky O'Hare and his faction are fighting against them. The leader of the Toads, who started the whole thing, is a computer called Complex, which the Toads created to help them. And then he became evil and he became their master, not their servant. Which is highly satirical, actually, because that could easily happen to us.
The Toads really are us, with their home world that used to be pleasant and green and everyone was happy, and it ends up as metal factories 20 stories thick. I mean, it's kind of like what's happened to our real world over the past 25, 30 years. Bucky O'Hare was a very accurate prediction of the sort of thing that might happen to a race like the Toads, like us, which is something that strikes you when you watch it in later years, I think, not as a young child.
Although to help out the young children, they do have Toad TV, which is a direct takeoff of human TV, with shows such as Toad Ann.
Toad TV is absolutely hilarious. Arnold Schwarzenegger's treatments to become a buff bird magnet and things. Absolutely brilliant.
Then who are the other baddies anyway? There's Toad Borg, who is a Toad Borg, or a Toad cyborg. Is he your favourite character, Jake?
Well, he is my favourite character. I was very much struck by Toad Borg when we watched those repeats because he's very menacing and powerful and cool. He has all these cool lasers and things, and he has some wonderful lines, interaction with the other characters.
And he's incredibly tall.
Yes, but he's very interesting because, like RoboCop, which actually isn't all it should be as a film, but that's beside the point. The interesting thing about Toad Borg is that he's not really a robot, as he himself says, but has all these emotions still working in his toad living brain, and he very much uses this as something he's proud of and something that makes him strong. I am a Toad Borg, I am more than a toad, I am more than a robot sort of thing. But it's interesting because when you defeat Toad Borg, it's impossible to do it with force, as the goodies discover many times, but the way to get to him is to goad him, which you can't do to a robot, of course. It has no emotions. So the part of him that's still a living toad that always functions, that he's so proud of, is actually, in a way, his weakness, as indeed there is weakness in all of us, which is quite an interesting little theme running through with Toad Borg. Always reminds me of RoboCop wanting to go and see his son and wife and things, and they've never meant him to do that. He was supposed to be a ruthless killing machine, or law enforcing machine.
Again, things you might not get as a youngster, but as you say, he is very striking as a villain, which is why the youngsters probably do like him.
Yeah.
Then we have some actual toads who aren't in any way machines. Toad Air Marshal, who doesn't have any other name. And of course, you like to point out, being a bit pedantic, he's not really an air marshal, is he? He's more of a space marshal.
Yes, and most of the ranks you get in it, which I've been interested in or obsessed with at various points in my life, are military or naval. But that's the only kind of Air Force rank you get in there. And there's not really air in space.
He's more of an admiral, isn't he?
Yes.
Being in charge of fleets of ships and things.
Yes, he's more of an admiral. And we've mentioned him in a podcast before because we were saying he's one of these villains who's quite interesting to watch because he's very ruthless and efficient in many ways. But when it comes to the crunch and he actually gets involved in danger himself, he's extremely cowardly and can be quite sycophantic to people above him. The sort of villain you wouldn't have a healthy respect for as a viewer or as a member of the good guys. We compared him to Captain Vervain from Watership Down and someone else, can't remember who. Were we saying that Widdermere was starting off like him in Dogtanian?
We were.
Didn't really carry on down that path, which was a shame. Yes, but Toad Air Marshal definitely is consistent in that way, which is easier over 13 episodes than 2 series, but there we are.
Those are the primary villains, I'd say. Then secondary villains working under Toad Marshall are Fricks and Frax, who could easily be really annoying, like, for instance, Sancho and Pedro from The Mysterious Cities of Gold, but they're not. They're actually quite fun. They mostly sit around watching Toad TV and kind of shirking. Sometimes they'll make sort of comments behind Toad Air Marshall's back that they don't like him and stuff, like when he says, "I don't like losing."
You should be used to it by now.
That's the one. But the most interesting thing that they do is get to be the Air Marshal between them in an episode where Toad Air Marshal, which is his name, is fired. Sometimes you might think, do Fricks and Frax really want to be evil? Are their hearts really in it? But then when they're being the Air Marshal and they're conquering planets and they're forcing these sort of monk rats or something to mine crystals, you can see that actually they're enjoying being really evil and nasty.
They kind of go with the flow, don't they, Fricks and Frags?
That's true.
Very much like the Toad race itself, I suppose. Complex has found it very easy to enslave them and make workers and a military force out of them.
Fricks is the one who'll be a bit more sort of sarcastic and say things like, "You should be used to it by now." And Frax is a bit more on the ball, for instance, when they're going around opening all the boxes in the hold of the spaceship and eating the sweets and stuff. And he finds Blinky in there because he's been smuggled aboard to kind of do stuff for the episode. Frax questions it and Fricks says, "Probably just some new part for Toadborg," and ignore it and that kind of thing. And when they're being the Air Marshal, Fricks is the one who screws up and Frax tries to temper him, but it doesn't work.
I never used to realise that they really had different characters, but they do. And there's that bit, isn't there, where Fricks gets out of the factory that's going to blow up, and Frax doesn't, and Fricks is worried about Frax, perhaps showing that he is more of a rounded character, a sympathetic character in some ways.
Yes, you see how he cares about Frax there. I like to think that Fricks would be the same way, had things gone the other way. Are they brothers? I always sort of supposed they were.
Yes, it seems quite likely, a cartoon sort of trope, they might be brothers.
Similar names and identical character design.
They're obviously officers of some sort. They don't have the Storm Toad uniform, and they have, like, officer hats and uniforms and things. And I guess that's why they're the next to be promoted to Air Marshal. So on the surface you would say they're comic relief sort of characters, but as you can tell from what we've been saying the past few minutes, there is more beneath the surface if you care to look. The other main villain, who's actually only in 4 episodes, isn't he, is Al the Gator.
I always liked him when I was a youngster, and I still do. He's an alligator, as you may guess from his name, play on words. He's purple, and he has a Southern American accent, and he says, "I guarantee," a few times.
Which I thought was extremely interesting, because on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles they had this mutant alligator called Leatherhead, who went around saying guarantee the whole time. And I suppose people from Florida, where alligators come from, must go around with their southern accent going guarantee the whole time, and that's why the joke is in both cartoons independently. Strange, though.
But he's also a sleazosaur, which sounds like a kind of dinosaur in a way.
Yes.
But does saur mean, is that the bit that means lizard?
Yes, it's lizard.
So, obviously a sleazosaur is some kind of reptile who likes money, because that's what it means. He goes around trying to get money all the time, and he's a mercenary, and he will do things for the Toads if they pay him.
Yes, what would be interesting, if there were other seasons, would be to see him actually genuinely working for the good guys at times, being an ambivalent, ambiguous character. But he always really seems to ally himself with the Toad side when you see him. But then he does want paying for it, of course. He's used very well and very importantly in episodes 2 and 3, isn't it, when he sabotages the Righteous Indignation. But his only other really good appearance, I think, is in one of the Deadeye episodes, Corsair Canards, about Deadeye's backstory and getting the pirates to join the fight against the Toads, where they do make good use of him as a kind of double agent, and he sells out the Toads at the end in order to buy his own freedom, showing that he doesn't really have any loyalty to anyone. His other appearance is quite a token one, isn't it? Where he's just hanging out on the resort with Toad Air Marshal, and he's built the mammal-repelling defence shield, hasn't he? And that's kind of all his contribution is. Perhaps an underused character, I think it's fair to say, and they could have done some more interesting things with him.
I dare say they would have if they'd got their second series, but didn't we read somewhere that they didn't because it was thought that the show was too complicated and difficult to understand? I don't know how true that is, but something that we've read.
Well, there's certainly a lot to it, and a lot of relationships and alliances in there that perhaps they didn't want to get too much in there to befuddle the young viewer's brains, so I don't know. They could have done with doing a bit more with him, I think.
Perhaps we'd better talk in detail about the protagonists now, because we've actually done all the villains. Shall we start with Willie and explain Willie a little bit? Being a human from San Francisco, he might not seem to fit into this format. It's based on a comic book, of course, and in the comic book, what happened was that Willie came to the Aniverse and Bruce got killed, and then Willie was stuck in the Aniverse and is desperately trying to get home.
As you can tell, the comic book is more sort of hardcore than a children's cartoon.
Both things that they changed in the cartoon. Bruce is alive, but he gets that to another dimension or the other end of the Aniverse or something, and he enslaves all the little monkeys on the planet he ends up on, and they bring him bananas and wrenches and things. Willie can get home anytime he wants. Now, the reason he's there is that the Righteous Indignation, which is their ship, has a photon accelerator, and Willie's building a photon accelerator in his bedroom for his school science project, and they activate them at the same time, and that obviously creates the magic door from Willie's bedroom onto the Righteous Indignation.
It creates a bridge between realities.
And then, yes, he can activate the door and go home whenever he feels like it. And what I didn't get when I was younger, but I did when I watched DVD, is that Willie's a bit of a fish out of water in San Francisco. His parents are hippies and not the slightest bit interested in science, and he's not interested in Woodstock and whatever else hippies are into.
His parents are presented as very airy-fairy, off in their own planet, not really caring about him, caring more about saving the whales or whatever it is. I think he's quite a neglected child in some ways.
Of course, his father does try to give him some advice, doesn't he? If you knew someone was going to beat you up for doing something that you thought was really important, would you do it anyway? And his father says some things are worth doing no matter what the cost. Speaking of being beaten up, he also gets picked on at school for being a brain, an egghead.
And they write Nero on his locker. But it's meant to be nerd, we worked out quite quickly. And I was saying last time that there were maybe some similarities between Grange Hill and Bucky O'Hare, and that was the one we could think of. Willie was having problems at school that he was coming to terms with in his own way. Of course, Willie's way is going to another dimension and interacting with the crew of the Righteous Indignation and fighting the Toads, which probably wouldn't happen on Grange Hill.
Yes, but it did help him to overcome the everyday problems of a school child. I've seen Toads scarier than you, he says, when he's standing up to the bullies. And what else happens to him? He's got his love interest, who's called Susie. But you don't know that unless you've got the DVD, and you've got a device that will play the DVD-ROM, and you find the scans of PDFs of some old scripts.
You'd think she could have mentioned her name, or he could have mentioned her name once in it.
She's in 2 episodes. She goes to the zoo with him in the same episode where Alligator doesn't really have anything to do.
And she starts nagging him about saving the animals as well.
Yes, and she's also in an episode, which is actually a Bruiser episode, telling Willie that the tarty girl who's flirting with him is only interested in his study notes to cheat with on tests.
I think that's a better appearance for Susie, really. She's actually interacting with Willie properly and helping him with his life. Her voice is done very differently on the 2 appearances. There's only one female voice actor, as is often the case on these cartoons, so it's the same woman both times, but in one of them she has this very strong Brooklyn accent.
In the first one, she sounds really high-pitched and sort of quite whiny. So maybe what they thought was she needs to sound less annoying.
Potential there, like Alligator, for some more interesting storylines in future seasons, which never happen.
Anything else to say about Willie, apart from obviously he's got a hilarious name?
Yes, they do come out with some funny lines in the show that probably aren't meant to be as funny as we English viewers find them. Willie doesn't quite get used in the same context so much in America. I want all your Willies, etc.
Good to see you again, Willie.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
Classic.
As Willie is us in some ways, the viewing audience, his journey into the Aniverse in some ways coincides with how we see it, and when everyone's having their individual episodes, Willie has to be with them as their buddy, let into their little secrets of their worlds, as we are let into the secrets, which works very well. You see it in things like He-Man with Orko, and it's not surprising in a show like Bucky O'Hare that's very fantastical, parallel universe, as the theme tune says, parallel universe falling on its face, that you get someone from our world stuck in there to lead us into that world in a way we can understand.
Who's next then? Perhaps Bruiser? Because I mentioned a Bruiser episode, the one where they go to his home world, Beetlejuicia, and he gets a medal for valor for his contribution to the Toad Wars. And we kind of think, well, apart from Bruce, there aren't any other baboons actually helping in the Toad Wars, so no wonder he got that medal. The bronze banana, who gets the silver and gold. And anyway, he appears in the second episode, feeling cross and upset that his brother Bruce has vanished. He's saying, I'm gonna get them toads, I got my brother, and things like that. He's very much the brawn of the operation, and that's because he's a space marine, and he's also a Beetlejuician berserker baboon. And when I was young, I didn't know that berserker was a kind of soldier thing. I thought it just meant berserk, but it means that too, because he does go a bit mad when he sees toads, a bit berserk, and there's even this bit where some toads see him, the creators of Complex actually, and they're going, look out, a baboon, is he berserk? What do you think? So that kind of confirmed that it just meant, yes, he's berserk, but no, it's a soldier as well. And the toads are all terrified of berserker baboons, and that's a theme that you get throughout the entire series. And actually, Willie's battle suit is Bruce's spare. Toads are initially scared when they see him, including Toadborg.
Yeah, that's a very interesting bit with Toadborg, where he has his gut reaction of a Beetlejuician berserker baboon, stay back, help, and then he realises, hang on, no baboon can harm me now, which makes me think he hasn't been a cyborg for that long, he's still kind of just getting used to it, which is kind of at odds with that CD-ROM that says that he's been one for 10 years.
In that episode I was just talking about, we meet Bruce and Bruiser's mother, and she's amusing because she's crying when he's getting his medal and saying, I'm so proud of you, my little boy.
My baby's been captured.
The reason the toads are able to do this is that Toadborg, and possibly some scientists have been helping him, I think they must have been, invented some goggles which make the baboons look wimpy, as Willie puts it, sort of scrawny and not really very big or scary. Willie sorts it out by inventing a kind of ray gun sort of thing that reverses the polarity on the goggles, and that's the one time I can think of where reversing, or negate, I think he says, negating the polarity on something actually makes sense, because the goggles are polarized to make the baboons look this way. Usually when people say they're going to reverse polarity on a cartoon, it's just a sort of fixel that doesn't mean anything. But,
yes.
Willie makes it make sense.
It's the old Star Trek go-to, quite interesting.
The other Bruiser episode is the one which is called The Search for Bruce, where there's a teleporter, which is a bit of homage to Star Trek, I should think. Bruce is inventing his own teleporter on another planet or in another dimension or something, and they interfere with each other, and then you get this sort of transparent version of Bruce coming and helping out. And you get a bit of his relationship with his brother Bruiser. At the end, they have to destroy the Toad's teleporter, and Bruiser doesn't want to because it will mean that Bruce is going to disappear. And then Bucky, who's going to do it with his gun, gets knocked unconscious, and Bruce says, oh, Bruiser, it doesn't matter about me, you have to destroy the teleporter. And Bruiser does, and he smashes it up with his string.
That's a good character moment for Bruiser. I think the point of having Bruiser in the cartoon is not in the original comic, it's worth saying before I continue with that.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Is that someone has read the comic while adapting it into the cartoon, unsurprisingly, and said, oh, this Bruce character has a lot of potential. He can throw the toads around and go berserk and stuff. And it's a shame he just dies in the first place. But obviously he needs to be got rid of, zapped away, and Willie comes in his place. So let's invent his brother, Bruiser, and bring him into the show and actually develop the character into a part of the main team, which I do think is a good idea, and I think the young audience very much would enjoy Bruiser's antics. And of course, having the search for Bruce, that's something they could have revisited in future seasons and got the whole crew all back together.
Someday when this is all over, we're going to find him again, says Bucky, and then they don't really mention it, but of course it's not all over yet, so they've got more important things to worry about.
Yes,
Or
indeed.
More urgent things, more immediate things.
That episode with the Berserker Academy, with the polarity reversing goggles, you get, as I was mentioning earlier, Willie joining Bruiser at the Berserker Academy and helping to train the recruits. And it's a great honour and a special favour to Willie, as he's done so much to fight the Toads and been an ally to Bruiser, and Bruiser puts in a word for him to get into the academy in an honoured position. And that is a recurring theme with having Willie as your special friend in your character episode for each character. For example, in the episode about the Corsair Canards joining the fight against the Toads, Willie becomes the honoured guest of Deadeye because he needs to be let into the secret meeting. We need to be let into the secret meeting, so he's Deadeye's special chum in that one. But he and Deadeye, Willie and Deadeye, have always had a close, strong friendship throughout the whole thing.
The episode you mentioned is called The Corsair Canards. There isn't a better title for it, I don't think. It's one of the ones that the script is on the DVD-ROM, and I remember finding it particularly interesting because there are a few lines that they had to cut for time, which made it make more sense. I can't remember what they were now, but it doesn't really matter. But there were also some things in the stage directions I particularly remember that they weren't able to achieve with the animation that they had. They're supposed to vote on whether the Corsair Canards are going to stop robbing everyone and fight the Toads. And this kind of rival of Deadeye's is saying, I challenge you to the traditional pirate test of skills. Deadeye saying, no, we need to vote. And Redjack is his name, is saying, you won't even accept our oldest challenge and all that kind of thing. And it says in the script, Deadeye looks around at the crowd trying to gauge their reaction, or something extremely similar. And from the animation, you don't get that. He just sort of moves his head.
Sometimes the animation doesn't allow the show to reach the kind of intricate levels that the scripts want it to. Same with Extreme Ghostbusters we were talking about a while ago. Sometimes the animation lets it down a bit. Of course, it's not bad, the Bucky O'Hare animation, but it's quite a complicated and character-driven, intricate story in places, and the animation isn't quite up to it sometimes. Actually, the Corsair Canards episode does have a couple of animation problems. There's some miscoloured faces at one point, isn't there? Blackbeak, the pirate, doesn't have a black beak at all, which is rather disappointing.
It actually says in the script that he has a black beak.
Yes.
The rivalry that Redjack perceives with Deadeye, I don't think Deadeye's that interested in having a rivalry, actually, but it's over Linnell, who is a female four-armed pirate duck, and she's after Deadeye and Redjack's after her. When I wrote a Bucky O'Hare fanfiction, I found out I was quite interested in that.
It's got a lot in there. It's pregnant with backstory that can be explored and perhaps would have been in future seasons and can be by fans if they wish. I do like the line in that one where Deadeye says to Redjack, will you not stop this nonsense, matey? And Redjack goes, nay, I will not. And they're talking about the test of skills competition, but they're also kind of talking in the macrocosm about the whole pirate life and the change to the fight against the Toads, which is quite an interesting little exchange, I think.
Yes, the writing is excellent there, and in the whole of the rest of the show, except possibly the last episode, which we'll talk about later. But when Linnell and the pirates turn up, and they find Deadeye is trapping them to get them to talk to the council and stuff. He does a little bit of flirting with her, and actually that's one of the lines there was a bit more of in the script, and I thought, well, it's a shame they couldn't fully realise all of this. What I like about Deadeye is that he is more sort of morally ambiguous than the other protagonists and antagonists as well, because they're pretty much just evil. For instance, very early on, he steals Willie's money, which turns out to be play money.
By the looks of things, you play for big stakes, matey.
Yes, he doesn't understand that, and he doesn't understand that the water pistol is a toy. But yes, he is debating with himself, shall I steal Willie's money? And then he does, and then when he says that line, he's giving it back, saying there's something been nagging at my conscience. And he's more sort of trigger happy, which is why he's the gunner, and willing to kind of embrace violence than the other goodies as well.
He's a very good character, Deadeye. Plenty to him. The other Deadeye episode, which has samurai lizards and Kamikaze Kamo, the samurai duck, who's Deadeye's old friend, is also a very good episode. It kind of makes you think Deadeye's had a lot in his life, being a pirate and being the old friend of this samurai, and I'm not quite sure how it all fits together, but an excellent episode there as well. It's the one where Toad Air Marshal is no longer the Air Marshal, and he teams up with this samurai lizard, Sly Lizard, who's not a true samurai because he doesn't stick to his word. Makes very good use of Willie as well, that episode where he gets tricked into helping the bad guys.
Planted an explosive on the righteous indignation, but he hasn't really. It's candy. The detonator is candy.
Cherry, it's good, Toad Air Marshal says that.
Yeah, that's your favourite quote.
That makes me laugh, yes.
He's building these evaporation satellites to dry out Canopus 3, the duck's home planet. But what he's done is he's put an explosive in all the satellites so that when Deadeye and Kamikaze Kamo come and rescue him, he can blow them all up.
Yes, very good there, Willie. He's outsmarted the bad guys.
And in that one, you really see the relationship between Deadeye and Willie. Deadeye's desperately trying to find him, and he's got hold of one of the lizards, and he's saying, "Where's Willie?" Like, really heart-wrenching stuff, and he has to hang glide or parasail off this cliff, and he doesn't want to because in the Universe ducks don't fly. One thing I don't do is fly. And he's saying, "This one's for you, Willie," and you really see how desperately he wants to get Willie back.
Yeah, it's good, the relationship between Deadeye and Willie. Very strong, very prevalent.
Possibly, probably the strongest one in the whole show out of everyone.
I should say so.
An interesting thing about that episode is how much the lizards and the ducks dislike each other. Not something that's inspired by the real world, or our world, I should say. I don't think, but no duck may touch a samurai and live. And Deadeye's explaining that Sly Lizard has kidnapped Willie, and he's saying he's the worst of them, and he calls them all sorts of horrible names, and just all ducks and all lizards obviously dislike each other in the Universe.
Again, pregnant with backstory there. Very interesting, very intriguing stuff. Jenny is a character that people like because she's got magic powers and breasts. And indeed, she certainly has a lot of backstory to her. She's a witch, as she gets called in a derogatory way sometimes, by Toadball, for example. An Aldebaran, which is this race of magic cats who all seem to be female. And she has to protect her true powers, extent of her powers, the nature of her powers from the other members of the crew. And she's the other character who has an episode where Willie is kind of let into her inner circle, as it were. This time kind of by accident, because he sort of accidentally spies on Jenny training the young Aldebaran princess, who's one of the guest characters in the episode, and accidentally sees them doing these secret Aldebaran things with the Quark demons, isn't it? And then he persuades Jenny that she can't steal the ship and fly off because it's got his door on it and that's his only way home, so he gets to join him with the adventure like that. So Jenny's kind of more reluctant than Deadeye and Bruiser to let Willie into the secrets of their little individual sects, but she does it anyway. That episode in that repeat run that we were mentioning over Christmas '94 was the first one they showed, and then they didn't show the first episode. very, very strange place to start, and very, very strange place to put it right at the beginning. And in many ways, it's quite a weak episode, I tend to think. There's a lot of complicated stuff about the Aldebaran censors and the pork demons and the soul quest and God knows what. But it's a very good episode for Toadborg, who is the only villain in it, and he has a lot of great lines. So a mixed episode there.
It's not one of my favourites, but I think it's just not the sort of thing I like. I'm not very interested in the magic, I'm afraid, and the Aldebaran Sisterhood. The fans absolutely love it and find it very interesting and intriguing. And somewhere online there's an interview with Christy Marks, one of the creators, and the fan is asking all these questions. Aldebaran this and cats that, and what about the men? And she just always answers, I hadn't really thought about it.
So again, pregnant with possible backstory and elaborations for fans, if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, I prefer Deadeye and Bruiser's kind of backstory and possibilities for further plots.
It is an interesting idea to give magical powers to the cats, because that is something inspired by this world. They're sort of associated with magic and mystery and mythology, and they were sacred in ancient Egypt and that kind of thing.
One good thing about Bucky O'Hare is there isn't really a character I don't like or don't think is a good character.
I feel the same way.
But obviously you do have your favourites and ones that you think are pulled off better.
Now, one thing fans tend to like, which I don't find remotely interesting, is the love interest that's supposed to be between Jenny and Bucky. I mean, I don't really see it myself. The only bit that I think they were really going for that is when Mimi the fox kisses Bucky on the cheek and makes him go all red, and Jenny gets all huffy and jealous.
It's a bit token, isn't it?
Terribly. And, I mean, she gives him the magic crystal, but, you know, she'd have given that to someone if she wasn't in love with him, if he was her captain or a friend or going on a dangerous mission like Bucky was.
Yes, it's a bit like Tai and Sora in Digimon. You can see the bits where people say, oh, that ship, but they seem a bit clutching at straws when you really stop and think about it.
And you don't seem to get interspecies sort of marriage and relationships in the Universe anyway, so I'd want to see a lot more to it if I was going to be convinced.
Another thing that annoys me about Jenny's crystal is where Bucky has to use it and he's clapped his hands to his ears to block out the sound of the hypnotic Toad TV, but he hasn't clapped them to his ears, he's clapped them to where our ears are. It's like when Bugs Bunny uses the phone, it's not very good to watch.
That is quite annoying, but never mind.
And he's got a space helmet on anyway. I mean, come on, and his proper ears are sticking out of it. It's interesting, we haven't really talked much about Bucky as a character. He's the captain. What more is there to say about him? He doesn't really have a special Willy relationship.
He's a green rabbit.
Yes, I'm Captain Bucky O'Hare. But the big overriding plot, especially during the first 4 episodes, which we were talking about earlier, is all to do with Bucky and his homeworld, Warren, and the Toads, and saving the rabbits, and Bucky's personal struggle. And he, in the CD-ROM, DVD-ROM stuff, has all this intense backstory about his dead brothers, doesn't he? Which you don't really get from the cartoon. I guess he's quite an intense kind of character. He's got that voice that's full of pent-up emotion, and he's obviously got a lot simmering below the surface, but I don't know, he's not one of the characters that I find it easy and interesting to get that involved with in the show.
In many ways, he's not as much of a protagonist as Willy, and even possibly other characters, certainly in their own episodes. Bruiser carries his own episode, Jenny carries her own episode with Toadborg, and Deadeye carries his own episodes. But I do like Bucky a lot as that leader, captain, pent-up emotion kind of character. I think the voice work is excellent. I think some of the lines could sound incredibly cheesy, a bit like He-Man's lines. But he says them really well, and I can't remember the name of the guy who does his voice. Sorry, Bucky's voice man, but anyway, if you look him up on the Internet Movie Database, his other roles are generally things like construction worker number 4 and additional voices. He doesn't seem to have had any other leading roles, which I found quite surprising because I think he is the perfect voice for Bucky.
It's interesting. Perhaps he has more value as the glue that really holds the show, the concept, the characters together, rather than an individual person with individual episodes and relationships in the show.
I do like it when he's dressing up as old Angus McChump and infiltrating the Toad's slave factory, which has got mostly rabbit/hares and Mimi the fox and a sort of buffalo or something.
Something they could have built on there in future seasons, Bucky's disguises.
Yes, I think that's the best and the most engaging thing he does, and revealing himself when it comes to the crunch and somebody has to jump up to the thing where they're making the climate converter.
Yes, it's a sort of huge high gantry, isn't it?
Yes, I couldn't think of the word. And this hare called Larry is going to do it, and he's saying, I didn't realise it would be so high, I can't do it. And Mimi's saying, you've got to, everything depends on you. He said, I'll try. And then Bucky appears saying, forget it, kid, you'd never make it, I'll go. And then he rips off his disguise, and that's really quite cool. And then he does the massive leap and big showdown with Toadborg and stuff, and that's when they're going to blow up the factory, and Rex is in there.
It's interesting, that bit, because you realise that Bucky has always been very much admired by his own people, even before the Toad Wars and the commissioning of the Righteous Indignation to fight them. Before he was Captain Bucky O'Hare, he's kind of this exalted figure on Warren, so you get a bit of Bucky's backstory there. And it is very compelling stuff, all that Warren and the climate converter, and those first 4 kind of serialised episodes really are very, compelling, but it'd be harder to make a kind of character profile for Bucky than some of his crew, I think.
Yes, and if you read the one on the DVD, it says that he's got 5 dead older brothers and terribly emotionally wrought and things like that, and not so much, as you say, what you could pick up in the cartoon.
But having read that, you think, oh yeah, I could see how that's not at odds with what's in the cartoon, but they haven't had time or the right kind of platform to go into it. And then we do come back to that first arc a bit in the final episode, don't we? Which we promised to talk about, which is a bit of a desperate toy catalogue in some ways. It's certainly the weakest episode.
There are a few kind of robots and things, that thing which is 3 things and they climb on top of each other.
That's obviously a prototype action figure.
And there's a very clear attempt to get Complex into an action figure, where he's on this monitor which is on a kind of robot body. And there's also, who we haven't mentioned, the crew of Commander Dogstar and his ship, the Indefatigable.
Yes, characters there on the Indefatigable having their only really decent appearances, with more than a couple of lines in the whole series. Commander Dogstar is a very funny character. He's usually used as a sort of blustering, clueless officer sort of thing, but can be put to good effect in some episodes.
He's meant to be a bloodhound, I think, because he's very keen on being able to smell well and follow scents and things, and he looks kind of like a bloodhound.
Used to good effect when he smelt alligator and recognises the smell later on in the early episode.
Unfortunately, he doesn't recognise it straight away and say, oh, he's a spy, I smelled him in the spy shop.
Oh, yes! If only he'd come in with that, could have saved a lot of trouble. The other desperate action figure, there's a couple actually, is Bucky with a new hat, or rather a new uniform, which is in that final episode. And then, of course, there's the Terror Toad, isn't there? Which we've seen pictures of the prototype for that action figure, haven't we?
Yes.
But it never actually got released. Kind of huge pink mutant toad. And yeah, the plot of that one, well, it's quite interesting, I suppose. Willie's not in on the secret. Bucky's an imposter, a double to fool the Toads.
Cousin Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's certainly not reaching the levels of quality that the rest of the series did. Of course, the bit we really love is it's up to you and me, Rumblebee, to sort out this whole mess, says Bucky. And Rumblebee's only said one thing in the entire series up to then. He's one of Dogstar crew.
Yes, he's an android second class, which they don't tell you in the cartoon. You have to read about it, don't you?
Yes, we'd like to have seen something with Rumblebee coming to terms with himself.
You were describing him as a glorified gun, weren't you?
That's right, we wanted to see something like he works towards realising I am not a gun and becoming more, well, human, I suppose.
Or B.
Yes, quite an interesting thing to do with robot characters sometimes. And you get a bit of it with Blinky.
Yes, we'll talk about Blinky in a moment, but before we do, I sometimes wonder, are there actual bees in the universe? There must be, or they wouldn't know how to make Rumblebee like a bee. But they have flies, which are like normal flies, which the toads eat.
Yes, and they have them all on the dirty planet Sludge, don't they? It's covered in flies to show us that it's filthy, just like in our universe.
Yes, and there's also the planet Bog, which is just sort of giant swamp with flies as well.
So they've had an android bee modelled on Aniverse bees.
So are all the android second classes or second class androids modelled on insects, or some of them modelled on flies? Quite an interesting point, I think.
Again, you could put your own spin on that.
And the reason Blinky, we'll talk about him now, is a better, in inverted commas, android is that he can do all sorts of useful things, like he can record and play back video footage, or he can unscramble coded toad discs and things like that.
He can do whatever he needs to do for the plot, basically. Much more useful than Rumblebee.
That's very true. And his episode, I think he's only got the one, hasn't he, on the Blink? The one with the Mammal Defence Shield and Susie going to the zoo with Willy.
Toad Air Marshal and Al Negator just kind of hanging out, playing golf.
They're in the hot tub together at one point.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned the Mammal Defence Shield, which Bucky's ship can't get through because we're warm-blooded and they're not. And I think we appreciate Willy saying warm-blooded rather than mammals, don't we?
Yeah.
The whole kind of resistance organisation is mammal-led and mostly mammal-populated, or whatever the word is. Deadeye is an exception. He is a bird. They do acknowledge that, but they say things like they call him Feathered Fool, and when the pirates are there, Linnell is having a bit of a go at the mammals, she's calling Bucky, I think, a flea bitten, and then he gets cut off. No, it's not Bucky, it's the chairman of the council, but never mind. So they do acknowledge the difference between birds and mammals, but they never explicitly say, well, you're not a mammal, actually, are you, Deadeye? You're a bird.
It kind of makes sense, as he's been recruited in from outside by the mammals, which they then try and do to the rest of the pirates. But you do see a penguin, don't you, on the mammal council, warm-blooded council at one point. So they do have some other birds in there, I think.
And an octopus.
And they have an octopus working for them.
He's very funny. His name's Dexter, and he says things like, who comes up with these stupid passwords, and who's trying up the restricted frequency?
The council didn't brief you guys. Figures.
Yeah, he's great. He's only in one episode.
And that also has Major Bottlenose, who's a dolphin.
Who is a mammal.
Yes, another mammal included in there. So it's very much mostly mammals. But that's the only one where they mention the acronym SPACE, which they never tell us in the dialogue what it actually stands for. And it's in the theme tune, Animal Adventurers from SPACE. Obviously, it's space, but it does stand for something, doesn't it?
I couldn't tell you what it is, I'm afraid. I'm not that much of a fan.
Society for the Protection Against Cold-Blooded Enemies, or something like that, isn't
That's
it?
very good.
Something like that.
Anyway, this defence shield, they put Blinky onto the Toad ship in a box, and Bricks and Frags find him, so it's probably some new part of the Toadborg, which I was talking about earlier. And it's to free the planet of the koalas. So Blinky goes to, sabotage the defence shield and stuff, and they capture him. Fricks and Frax are guarding him, and he escapes, and there's some quite amusing dialogue there.
They were guarding him real good.
You didn't tell us! And what he didn't tell them was that he's reprogrammed Blinky to escape, get back onto the righteous indignation, sabotage it, and make it crash into the sun. That was quite exciting, but fortunately Willy manages to reprogram Blinky, they fix the ship together. They send Blinky back to the toads and the planet of the koalas, letting them think that he's still reprogrammed so that they can sort things out.
He's still reprogrammed. He thinks he's on your side. Yeah, thanks for that, Alligator, just in case we didn't get it. I do like that bit, so do you, where Blinky is fighting the commands that he's been given by Toadborg.
Ah, yes.
Humble robot must now do as programmed. No, must not do that. Imperative. Negative. And you can see there that Blinky's kind of breaking through his programming, working towards becoming an independent thinking being. Could be explored in later seasons if there were any. And yeah, that kind of thing I'd like to have seen with Rumblebee.
That would have been a really good episode. Oh. We could talk a bit about the creators of Complex. Is that quite interesting?
Well, it is.
They're 3 characters, 2 of which you need to read the scripts on the DVD-ROM to get their names. I can't remember what they are now.
There's Hopkins, Wartimer, and something else.
Croker, I think. So there we are. We remember
Croakley.
Croakley, something like that. But it's on Wikipedia anyway. Dr. Hopkins is the one whose name is mentioned. The mammals are led to believe, because the toads have worked out that they've cracked their code, that the creators on their prison ship, which Complex put them on and sent them into space, were cryogenically frozen and they're still alive, and they go looking for them, hoping that they can tell them how to take Complex apart, but actually it's a trap. But then it turns out the legend is true and the creators are still alive, and they don't really do that much in the episode, actually. But it's an interesting idea, and this went into my fan fiction, that the mammals look after them so that they will be safe from Complex, as one of them says. And it turns out they don't know how to take him to pieces. If we knew how to do that, do you think we'd have let him launch us into space? I like to think maybe if they sit down and think over what they actually did, they could come up with some good ideas.
You incorporated into your big fanfic, didn't you, how they helped the mammals to work out how to finally defeat Complex. So they're kind of characters that should be revisited in a continuation of the story, be it fan-based, or if they'd made another season, could have come back to them there.
Of course, in that episode is the planet Sludge, with Dexter and Major Bottlenose, and that's the bit where Blinky goes off to find bananas for Bruiser. Bruiser says, yeah, good plan, go and get bananas. He's got this magazine with a picture of a naked woman baboon in it.
Yes, you can tell, because he turns it the other way up so you can have a good look at it.
He's sort of grinning pervily. Something for the adults there, anyway.
We were saying earlier that the toads are us, with their over-reliance on technology that eventually takes over, which is very true. But the mammals coalition bureaucratic government sort of thing is also us. It's the lethargic failure to accept the truth, not facing the realities of the dangers aspect that the world, human society, falls into the trap of being sometimes, where they don't commission enough ships to fight the toads, and finally you get 3 to fight this whole toad army.
The righteous indignation, the indefatigable, and the screaming Mimi, which they give to Mimi. They fast track her straight to Captain after she helps us shut down the slave factory.
It's not much of a fleet, really, obviously. Because they're the protagonists, they're much more skilled than the toads and have a great deal of success about them. But yes, the mammals, the council, their political apathy, which is another bit of satire, and Bucky will go in and be cross with them sometimes, and Linnell, as Rosie mentioned, does that as well. So there's a lot of satire in it from a couple of different directions. Perhaps a last word about Willy. I do think he's a good protagonist, a good vessel for taking us into the Aniverse, and the way he's a fish out of water in his own world and then finds himself and learns to deal with his own problems by going to this other dimension is quite interesting. I think Shane Mayer, who was the young actor, did some very good voice work on him. I think the show would suffer in many ways if we didn't kind of sympathise with him and like him.
Shall we do a couple more favourite quotes just before we finish up?
Well, why not?
But if anything happens to you, we'll be helpless.
Then you'd better hope nothing happens to me. That's Toad Air Marshal to Toadborg.
Complex, you are the master. You know all. I assumed.
You assume too much. That's a very foppish, weird Toad officer, Captain Schmarder, isn't it?
Yes, he's only in that one episode.
Very ineffectual, even worse than Toad Air Marshal.
Complex wanting to know why was I not informed of the capture of Bucky O'Hare, by the way. I think those are the two really great quotes, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I'll tell you one final thing that makes me laugh about Bucky O'Hare. The cast on the DVD.
Oh my gosh.
Which includes in it the main characters, some of them twice with different voice actors listed. And then at the very end it has the show's two main characters, Mr. Toad.
And Piddly the Monk Rat.
Yes, Piddly the Monk Rat. One of the greatly featured characters in the show. We have no idea who it is. Is it one of Dogstar's crew? I don't know.
I don't think so. Well, they've got names, haven't they? And none of them is a monk rat.
Digger the Mole and Wolf the Wolf.
Rumblebee and the guy with the spanner who's a sort of bulldog or something.
Yes, it's a sort of pitbully thing, isn't it?
I don't think he's Piddly the Monk Rat.
No, maybe Piddly the Monk Rat is one of the lethargic, apathetic mammalian council. Or maybe he's just a monk rat who piddles all over the place.
Mr. Toad and Piddly the Monk Rat should have their own spin-off.
Well, there we are. Plenty of food for thought about Bucky O'Hare there. Short and sweet.
The brightest star shines for the shortest time.
Next time, our podcast will be on the subject of Mike and Angelo.
I wonder how well loved and remembered that is. We certainly remember it.
And love it well. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Until you do,
good night out there.
Whatever you are.